Hey, good evening. How the heck is everyone? It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. I hope you're all doing okay. I'm Bill Sylvie and I'm doing just great. Yeah, I just got that. There was sound problems with the intro. So thank you very much. By which I mean thank you not at all to OBS. So I'll play it on the outro. That's what I'll do. That lovely, lovely music that is by my friends over at Bards of Greyhawk absolutely deserves to be heard. I'm tired of technical issues. I well and truly am. If anybody wants a zero pay next to thankless job as producer on this live stream, let me know. But anyway, that soothes. So how are you guys? I have solved some of the technical problems. I did get the little webcam here working. I am zoomed in way too close. I won't be this zoomed in tomorrow. But anyhow, it's good to see everybody on the stream. Guys, we are at 985 subs. 985 subs on this channel. 985. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that means? 985 subs means that we are 15 subs away from the starting gun. The Lancashire Poacher trumpet sound. The green flag. 0 on the mission clock of getting ourselves a little virtual con. Something I've titled the very easy to remember Great Underground Online Gaming Convention, the Guac. So, yeah, if you're interested in doing some online gaming, hanging out with some wonderful people, including yours truly, playing some classic Dungeons and Dragons, by which I mean original and advanced, some classic adventuring board games such as Hero Quest, such as Dungeon, such as Space Hulk, and other types of games, Twilight 2000, Tales from the Loop, Traveler, Classic Traveler. I believe somebody has talked about running some DCC. You can absolutely do that. Please, yes, thank you, Chip. Hit the like if you like. And I would really appreciate it. I would really appreciate it, definitely, for sure. Hit subscribe. And if you have friends who like this kind of thing, who like hearing about old role-playing game systems, hearing a little bit about new news and whatnot in the tabletop hobby world, and just general talk and having a good time, please tell them to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon for notifications. Because when that happens 15 more times, gentlemen, we're going to a gaming con. So I'm looking forward to it. So you might notice I'm not talking about RuneQuest, and Kyle's not here. Kyle is going to be here tomorrow because tomorrow we have very, very special guest on the live stream. Tomorrow, finally, the stars have aligned, and we are going to have Servant of Shiloh, the head of state over at RPG Elite, the YouTube channel. He's going to be in attendance, and we're going to talk to him about gaming for a little while. So Kyle and I will be doing a little round robin. Kyle is out there doing like show producery kind of stuff. Like, oh, I've come up with some questions we should ask him. I'm sorry, Kyle. That's really the best I can do. Yes, Mars bringing pit fiends to Guac. Just, you guys look out for that. But anyway, so yeah, Kyle is hyped. I am hyped, and he will be here tomorrow RPG elite in the house, go check out his channel. He makes great content. And if you have questions for him, ask him in the chat and we will bring them to him as long as they're appropriate and tasteful. He's a guest. We have to be nice. So no saying swears. But anyway, so that is Thursday. Friday, of course, we will be playing some Gemma World. And what else? Just some general BS on Friday. I am going to be very, very busy this weekend, and then we'll be back on Monday. I just sent a message to my 3 gaming buddies to subscribe the next time they get online. Should happen within the next few days. What do you mean it should happen in the next few days? They're not online all the time. They don't just live with a TCP/IP drip going into their veins like I do. No, that's awesome. Thank you, Luther. I appreciate that. That's great. And you know, if their numbers 986, 7, and 8, then that's even more awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, I was talking a lot today. I had a couple of 3D prints finish, and I was going to show you guys yesterday some 3D prints, but this thing and this software, this thing, I forgot how zoomed in I am. The camera was acting up last night, and I could not for the life of me get it to work. So if you were on the Discord, you might have gotten to see, hello, Michael Connor, unbreaded, completely unbreaded Michael Connor. So if you were on the Discord, you would have seen the photo I sent. But if you're not on the Discord, if you're new to the channel, I will show you some prints. But I'm just going to go ahead and jump right ahead a little bit and show you the semi-failed print that I made today. It's right here. It might look fine from where you're sitting, but trust me, it's not. People of Oith. Anyway, I will show this to you guys now, and this is I'm going to switch over to the camera. I'm not trying to roll it up and smoke it. So let's go over to desktop view, where I'm still there, and you guys can take a look at that. Now, at a glance, it might look okay, but looks can be deceiving because look at the back deck. It looked like it got hit by a javelin missile. Also, if you're not familiar with armored vehicles, there are supposed to be these things called skirts. They prevent a whole host of problems like stuff getting caught in the tracks flopping off, and crewmen getting caught in the tracks. Now, next, note here that wheel that is shaped like an oval. There's a whole host of little problems. The side of the turret, that's the bit that the guns stick out of and goes around in a circle. There's supposed to be an armored panel over here and a radar dish sticking up right here. I have the radar dish. I saw where it fell off when I took it out of the printer, so I just got it out. But yeah, there are no top skirts nor side skirts on these treads. And it gets a little worse because I'm not sure if you guys can see, but look at the gun barrels there. They are bent at like a 15-degree angle at the ends. So this print went really, really poorly. We can see on this side, it's kind of equally naff. Come on, get in focus. Is this thing picking up my Star Wars t-shirt as a head? There we go. And you can see it didn't even bother trying to print some track there. It is, and I intend on keeping it to doctor it up like it's taken some RPG hits. Not just going to waste all that resin and time. So this guy got pretty bad. So what happened was Well, you know what? I'll come back to that. I'm going to come back to that. There, by the way, is the radar dish, the aforementioned. Is that going to. That just. It printed and it held on just long enough for me to start removing the supports, and then it fell off. So I'll show you some other pieces in case you missed these. So here we have a crowd favorite. Now, I was never the LJN D&D toys guy growing up. I was more of a Star Wars figure guy. But here we have Warduke. Somebody made an STL of Warduke. Come on, get in focus. It's because of my finger. Come on. It's because of my finger, isn't it? Move back a little bit. Anyway, so there's Warduke standing posed triumphantly on a base. Yeah, definitely negative hit modifiers on those guns. And then I have this Warduke who's not on a base, and it's very difficult for him to stand up. So you can get that to focus. Probably not. The print quality is so much better than what you're seeing, trust me. But he's kind of in attack mode there. And then I have this little jewel. This actually showed up in last night's AD&D game. I just popped it off the printer and used it. I need some Jeremy's razors, yeah. If you guys can see that, that is a classic rust monster. It will just not catch focus. I was testing this literally just before we came on, and it was doing it fine. And finally, in my continuing failing attempt to show you guys anything, a beholder. Is that gonna? Nope, it's trying to focus on my hand still. Ah, there we go. And that is a classic Grenadier beholder that someone scanned and made an STL file of. So I printed those guys up yesterday, and I printed the tank today. Now, what I have decided I have to do, yeah, blurry item number 3. What I'm going to have to do with the tank is go into 3D Builder, which it's one of those things. It's kind of like MS Paint, but for 3D objects. And I really hope Microsoft never gets rid of 3D Builder, because it's actually useful. It's a little like MS Paint. You're not going to create a great work of art, but man, if you really need to bang something out, it is top notch. You're fired, Luther. Anyway, by the way, the upstanding Warduke and the Beholder, I can actually print these out okay with fine detail and slow print speeds on my FDM printer over there, my filament printer. So is that the beholder that? No, this is not the beholder that will chase a stick instead of defend where it's told to. It's not. Yeah, it's not from that stupid D&D movie. Good evening, Vincent. Chinosaurs, yes. That is the D&D movie, Michael Connor. The very breaded D&D movie. The D&D movie that is totally and completely breaded. Um, but anyway, so the minis came out very cool with the exception of the tank. But what I'm going to do with the tank is in 3D Builder, I'm going to thicken the parts that fail to print properly on the turret. Now, I've separated the turret from this particular instance of the hull. And for those of you who remember our earlier discussions about the old Sergeant York, which is what this is, when the various contractors that came together to make this thing made this thing, they made this thing out of parts of an F-16 fighter, the radar and fire control system, a World War II anti-aircraft gun, the twin 40 millimeters, and a Vietnam era tank, the hull. Well, the Vietnam era tank had there were tons of them left, so they just said, hey, instead of designing a whole new tank, we'll just take tanks that we've already got and put this anti-aircraft turret on it. It didn't work out so well, which is why this is a little known vehicle today. But there are lots and lots of nicer and easier to print 1/100 scale M48 tank models out there in 3D land. So using 3D Builder, I cut the top off of the hull that came with the 3D model for the Sergeant York. And I'm going to mount it on the easier to print actual for tabletop wargaming M48 hull. So hopefully with some work I'm going to do, I'll get a better print and I can just smudge this up and make it look like it got hit with a couple of anti-tank missiles, maybe make it an objective marker or something. But anyway, I still think a trilogy of movies based on G1 to 3 with Gary as executive producer would have been awesome. So Gary, you guys are going to hear this if you're here for the anniversary show, which is in a week and 10 days. Gary talks a little bit about the movie in the interview. And I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to give it away, but it wasn't Against the Giants, but that would have been awesome. And Against the Giant movie. If you've ever read the Against the Giants paperback, so here's the thing. They spend the first third of the book exploring the reasons behind the giant raids and just getting in to the steading of the hill giant chief. The last 2/3 of the book cover the rest of G1, all of G2, and all of G3. All of the slow pacing and everything that they were doing just falls apart, and then it just becomes hurry, 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 done. And a proper Against the Giants book series should have been about 300 pages per book. I liked it for what it was. It was just over too quick. Hey-o, Imperial Ramblings. I honestly wish they'd create AD&D style TV series. Well, they did. It's called the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. I'm not being snarky and I'm not being hateful about that. It really, it's AD&D on television. And I wish it had been more appreciated in the United States as much as it was south of the border. In Mexico and Brazil and Guatemala and other countries, the D&D cartoon was huge. So big, in fact, that, like, you know how, like, here in the States from like the early 20 teens till now, they've really been hitting us 40, late 30s, early 40s, early 50 somethings with big, heavy 80s nostalgia. I mean, there was, what was it? Before um, Radio Shack went down the tubes, they had this commercial that was starring everybody that was big in the 1980s. I mean, everybody. Um, and it's like Mary Lou Retton was in it, Weird Al was in it, just everybody was in it. Well, they did the same thing down in Brazil, but their appeal to nostalgia was, I want to say it was a Toyota SUV, or maybe it was Nissan. But the driver of the SUV, and this was live action, they got actors to do this. The driver of the SUV is revealed to be Dungeon Master, which, if you're a Gen X or Brazilian, you had to be just freaking out at how cool that was. And then he pulls up, and there's the gang from the D&D cartoon, all a little bit older. They all pile into the car and drive away, and there's like fireballs hitting the ground. Again, all live action. That's how much they loved the D&D cartoon. Here, that, I mean, nobody would get that. Nobody here would get that. And that commercial is so far literally the best officially licensed Dungeons and Dragons movie that's been released. Not counting bits of Community and Freaks and Geeks and the Goldbergs. But that is a fantastic commercial. Was Max Headroom in the Radio Shack commercial, Chip? I honestly don't remember. Thundar the Barbarian. Oh yeah. There's you can many iterations of it on YouTube. All the narration and so forth is in Portuguese, of course, which is the primary language of Brazil. But I mean, it's all visual. Like you don't care about whatever SUV that was, the Nissan or Honda or whoever, right? I mean, you're not. It may not even be a model for sale in the United States. It's like, you know, it's gotten a little less weird, but like if you've ever seen Mad Max, all the cars they drive in Mad Max are Fords. They're Fords. Mad Max's Interceptor is a Ford Falcon XB. Never made in the United States, never brought to the United States. Nothing in those body lines like anything sold in the United States. If you squint your eyes and you're looking at it in the dark, and one of those eyes is shut and it's a cloudy day and you don't have your contacts in and it's really far away, it might kind of resemble a Maverick, but not really. So it may be the case in the commercial for whatever car that was, that's not even a model of SUV available in the States. But yeah, so Gary will talk about the movie in the interview that I'm going to play, which we will close out the live stream. Now, if you typically listen to or watch the live streams on Facebook, you're gonna miss out on the first few hours of the show. You're gonna miss out on the first few hours of the show because Facebook only lets you stream for 8 hours. I'm in it for 12. I am in the mix for 12 hours. It's going to be fun. We'll just have to go with the room lighting and a webcam, because I don't think my DSLR and the studio lights batteries will last for 12 hours. I hardly think. So when, when it's on, YouTube only lets you stream for 8 hours max. So you'll start on YouTube 4 hours in. Basically, you'll miss it. But, and that's, I love my YouTube audience and I love my Facebook audience, both. So you guys who watch on Facebook, you won't miss the Gary interview. I will play the Gary interview at the end of the stream. Okay. Not in the middle, not at lunchtime, at the end of the stream. And I will be here the whole time. Walter Koenig does look like DM from the cartoon. You're right. +1 to Imperial Ramblings. He does look like the DM from the cartoon, which is kind of sad in its way. But hey, we all get old. It's him and Kirk, isn't it? No, I guess Nichelle Nichols and what's his name, Sulu, are still alive. So Uhura, Sulu, Chekhov, and Kirk. Everybody else is gone. But yeah, so all that's what's happening. Like I said, SOS is tomorrow. Then Friday we're playing Gamma World. I'll be busy doing stuff channel related all weekend. And then Monday we start the show all over again with a new episode talking about stuff. And I did find out today, one more note on 3D printing. Koenig was a great villain as Bester. Sulu is still, yeah, you're right about that, IR. He won't shut up about it, will he? Chip, you're absolutely right. It would be lost on folks here in this. Like, me and everybody in this audience would get the D&D cartoon thing. When I saw it, I was, I was so happy about it. But yeah, no, most people it just. Now they hooked us back in with Stranger Things. But yeah, Bester, Walter Koenig Bester. I thought when it came to scenery chewers, yeah, Bester was pretty cold-blooded. He was pretty lizard-like. And as much as I loved as much as I loved the D&D cartoon, is it set in Greyhawk? It's never specified. It's just called the D&D world, but there are some Greyhawky things that show up. There's a beholder in an episode. Well, I don't want to spoil it. You just watch it and look for the Greyhawk references. But they never like, hey gang, we're going into the Flaness. Oh, I hope we don't get caught by the slavers down on the wild coast. No, it's nothing like that. It's very subtle and generic enough that you don't feel pushed down a road. Babylon 5 is one of those shows that it was really, really good, but there's a whole lot of shows, just so many shows that absolutely, positively, frustratingly leave a fella how should I say this? Feeling pretty unfulfilled. Now, I know that there were psychic versus normal wars mundanes, people without psychic powers in the Babylon 5 universe. The realm. Thank you, Joshua. The realm. I know that there was a lot, and that eventually someday Bester got his. And I know that a good story won't just have pat answers. Even the Lord of the Rings teases one along for a long, long, long time. In a good way. But dear Lord, could JMS not have finished him off? You know, they reprogram his ship to jump into the sun. A sniper a great distance away, not looking him in the eye, far enough away with a copper mesh wrapped around his head or something, takes Bester out with a bullet. Something. Bester never got his. He always walked away with that little smirk and the little the village reference. Be seeing you, Commander. I mean, and whenever anybody had the chance, it was that Sheridan was always like, no, we can't. Technically, you're right, so I have to let you go. The man posed an existential threat to humanity just as bad as the Shadows, just as bad as the Vorlons. And the whole, somebody worse could step in. Take the chance. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe the message will get out there. Oh, shit, they don't like us messing with their heads. Let's just go and live on telepath planet. We'll just take over a solar system and just, these normies are, Garibaldi lives long enough to dig up Bester's body and drives a stake through his heart in one of the novels. That makes me exceptionally happy. Jerry Doyle was a fun guy. And to know his character got to do that to Bester, that pleases me to no end. But man, JMS was the king of leaving you needing, not wanting, needing resolution and then not giving it to you. I mean, I felt the same way in Farscape, which was equally as good, but in a very different way from Babylon 5. When at the end of Farscape, warning, spoilers alerts. At the end of Farscape, the main character, a human named John Crichton, has been chased for most of the series by a guy. If Bester's lawful evil, Scorpius was neutral evil. Scorpius was just like, I want to do evil, John. I want to do evil because evil pleases me. It's not for power, John. It's not for control of the galaxy. I leave that to the peacekeepers. No, I want to do evil, John. Scorpius. And at the end of Farscape, Scorpius literally, verbally speaking, shakes John's hand and walks away. I would hunt him down. I would find him. I would blow him out of the stars. Peacekeepers hated him. The Scarans hated him. All the other minor races he had dealings with ended up hating him. He was literally like the equivalent of Tuco in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but with no redeeming qualities. And the whole, oh, we're just going to live and let live. We're just going to let you skate. You know, there's been too much killing. Or, you know, if we do this, we're just as bad as he is. Oh, come on. I feel like Scott in Austin Powers. What? Why don't we just shoot him? I got a gun in my room. I can go get it and shoot him. We'll do it together, like father and son. It'll be fun. And the writers are like Dr. Evil over there going, Scott, you just don't get it, do you? So Bester, I've dreamed 1,000 terrible deaths for Albert Bester. But what are you going to do, right? I mean, we're at the whims of authors. So yeah, Walter Koenig was great in that. They had a few different Star Trek regulars on there occasionally. And I mean, you know, you work where you can work. There was I know Majel Barrett was on an episode or two of Babylon 5. Koenig, of course, recurring many times over. I think it would have been great if just one by one they could have gotten them all to guest star on. That would have been great. Dr. Smith, first season of Lost in Space. The first season of Lost in Space, I mean, you know, people tend to think of the goofy, you know, Dr. Smith and his alliterative nonsense and, you know, his exceedingly foppish antics and, you know, the robot, danger, Will Robinson, danger, you know, clicking its claws together. That show was not campy the first season. That show was not tongue in cheek. That show, they were going for the same vibe as Star Trek. And like, Dr. Smith was trying to kill them. He is the reason they got lost in the first place. There's an analog computer gyro compass. You'll have to forgive them. It was the 1960s. They didn't know better. And Dr. Smith literally has a ring with a rare earth magnet in it, sticks it to the housing as soon as they get on the ship, and it throws the gyro compass off by just a degree or two. When you're talking about interstellar differences, that's the difference between going to Alpha Centauri and heading out of the galaxy. Zathras not like Lost in Space. Yes, Vinny, we've been talking about that cartoon, actually. We have been discussing that. I think Vincent may be on dial-up, guys. I'm just teasing you, Vincent. Okay, so Invisible Man is one of those 90s sci-fi. Was it 90s or early 2000s? I feel like it was 90s. Sci-Fi Network. They would burn like $750,000 on 10 episodes of anything. I mean, all of you guys and me, we could have all just like in 1998, just loaded up in a party van, driven to the studios, pitched a cyberpunk series, and literally just spent most of the budget on catering, and they would have given it to us. It's like, yeah, so our guys can put Nintendo cartridges in their heads, and then they can act like the Nintendo guys. Ooh, we don't think we can afford licensing. Can you call it something else? Absolutely. Okay, well, do you think $1.9 million will be enough for the first season? Sure will. And with the people we've got in here, that's like $194,000 a piece. Sold D&D cartoon character cups. Damn, that is great. That is great, Vincent. Space Above and Beyond. Yeah, that's another sad one. At least Space Above and Beyond got an ending of sorts. They were like, well, we're not going to get renewed for another season. Kill everyone. And it's kind of left on a cliffhanger as to whether or not humanity will win the war against the Chigs. It's never, they don't give us any answers. You know, it's not like World War II, but in space. It's more like, well, World War II in space, but we're the Japanese. We're on the losing end of it. Not Japanese ethically and morally, although there were some pretty questionable ethically questionable things that humanity was getting up to in that. I liked it. I was always a big fan of Joe Haldeman's The Forever War, the novel. And there's an episode that so let me set a scene for you. If you're not familiar with if you're not familiar with Space Above and Beyond, humanity goes out and colonizes a few planets. And it's, you know, it's established you spend months in transit time for a couple of light years of travel. It's near liminal speeds, but or luminary speeds rather, but not there is essentially no faster than light travel. So this takes place in like a very limited space, like between here and Alpha Centauri and a few other star systems. And they were the United States Marine Corps in space. But it's similar to Joe Haldeman's The Forever War, which, if you're not familiar with that, is Joe Haldeman. And I'm not belittling it. This is just my capsule thing. I could give a whole talk about Joe Haldeman's The Forever War. And it would, like, we would be here all night. But briefly, The Forever War by Joe Haldeman is Joe Haldeman coming to grips with post-traumatic stress issues that he experienced due to the Vietnam War and his initial dislike of Starship Troopers. Because Starship Troopers, from Haldeman's perspective, was Heinlein saying, rah, rah, war is great. Now, when Haldeman wrote, kind of as a rebuke, Starship Troopers, or Forever War, Robert Heinlein read it and, like, to his face, personally told Joe Haldeman, this is this is the best science fiction military book ever written. This is really how it is. And that just, like, Haldeman expected he'd get all kinds of nasty feedback from Heinlein, and Heinlein was just like, no, everyone should read this. This is really what it's like, which I think is pretty cool. But in the Forever War, all the recruits are sitting in their first day of basic, and their drill instructor, their combat instructor, comes into the briefing room and says, good morning. Today, I'm going to teach you 21 different ways to kill a human being. And proceeds to do so. So to jump back over to Space Above and Beyond, there are vat-grown humans in Space Above and Beyond who were built to fight a war against the silicates, androids. Androids got out of hand, started to overwhelm humanity. They needed a lot of soldiers. They vat grew a whole bunch of them, threw them into the war as disposable material. Because hey, they're clones. They're just spun up in a couple of months. We teach them just enough how to go out and fight and then cut them loose. One of the characters in Space Above and Beyond was one of the last series to get spun up. And by the time he's done with his military training, the war is over. And nobody wants them around. Actually, there's two of them in the series, but they show his training. So he's effectively mentally like 5 years old, even though physically he's in his early 20s when he goes to school the first day. And he sits down, and I'm watching the episode, and he's sitting in a classroom, and so it is so cool because it's a slide, like you can hear this click of an old Bell and Howell slide projector. This is supposed to be set like 300 years in the future. Well, no, I don't think it's that far in the future. 100 years in the future, say. Arlie Ermy was in it, and he was great. Yes, he was. So he's sitting there, and what's amazing is there's like 2 lines of dialogue in the entire episode. And he's just staring at the screen. Good morning. Your country loves you. Next slide. Next slide after that. You love your country. Your country needs you. Today we will teach you 21 different ways to kill a human being. And I was like, this is some pretty intelligent science fiction. And the one line of dialogue in it is all they want out of the vat-grown clones in Space Above and Beyond is for them to be killers. They don't want freedom of thought. They don't want introspection. They don't want a zeitgeist. They don't want a holistic view. They just want them to fight and kill. And if they die, so what? And so our character, our boy, is sitting there in the classroom. And it's this, I mean, if you've ever been like in a portable classroom for college, for elementary school, whatever, it's basically, if you haven't, it's 2 trailers up on bricks stuck together with the center wall removed. It's about as rickety as it sounds. And he's sitting there. And he gets distracted, and he looks over. And there's a bird flying free outside of the camp. And he raises his hand. And it's clear by the reaction, the instructors have never seen this before. They've never seen a student raise their hand to question anything. And so, these 2 military guys stalk over, and they're like, what is the problem? And he says, who monitors the birds? And he considers this for a second, and he says, I do. And then he goes back to instructing the class. And the name of the episode is Who Monitors the Birds? So I highly recommend the series. It had flashes of absolute brilliance. And again, when it became clear that humanity was not going to, or that they were not going to get a second series, I said, okay, well, if we're not going to get a second series, we're not going to leave it hanging. And it was created by the writing team that worked on Millennium and worked on the X-Files. Not Chris Carter. Chris Carter didn't work on it, but some of his other writers worked on that series. And it is great, and I recommend it. It is worth your time. If you want some inspiration on running a military sci-fi game, check it out. It's absolutely worth watching. And Arlie Ermy is in it. Arlie Ermy basically completely reprises his role minus the foul language as senior drill instructor Hartman. They said, look, have you trained pilot recruits before? Well, no. That's fine. Go in and do the thing that you did in Full Metal Jacket. And he brings it. There's just like no foul language. We can't edit that much. That's fine. He went in and he brought it. And there's an entire episode. That episode alone is worth watching. Millennium is good. Millennium's another great series. If you do tabletop gaming, horror gaming, if horror gaming is your thing and you want to do something a little bit different from it's Cthulhu. Absolutely, positively Millennium. Millennium will get you just about most of what you want. It's got monster of the week, serial killer horror. It's got apocalyptic horror. Because let me tell you what, I know there's a few people out there who listen to or watch the show who are not as old as I am, and some of you guys are. There was a good deal of Y2K paranoia back in the day. Now, all that stuff about computers are going to stop working and banks will think you have no money and missiles could launch because they think it's the wrong year or something like that was never going to happen. That was never going to happen. But people were still worried about it. I mean, I am sure there are plenty of people who have solar-powered water pumps sitting in their garage that they bought from listening to Art Bell. I had a coworker who listened to Art Bell for entertainment purposes. And in 1999, I remember I was working night shifts to make shift diff money to help pay for my honeymoon. And Henry Kong, who looked a bit like Master Po, but with hair, and sounded like Bob Marley because he was from Jamaica. Yes, he was of Chinese descent and from Jamaica. Henry and I would sit and listen to Art Bell some nights. And one night a guy calls in and he gives this whole grand conspiracy theory about Y2K and the collapse of computer banking and starts going in on how computer banking networks are connected. Henry and I were sitting in the data center for the largest electronic funds transactor in the United States. I had started there in late 1996. It is now mid 1999, early 1999, maybe even late 1998. And Henry and I are just looking at each other. We're like, are you hearing this? Are you hearing this? Imperial Ramblings, I love that. That is amazing. But so Henry and I are just busting a gut. Everything this guy said about how electronic finance worked was wrong. And I said, we ought to call in and just call the guy out. Because we were sitting in the data center for the largest electronics funds transaction in the United States. Folks, I'm here to tell you, I worked in that department for 3 of the 5 years I was there. Every Y2K preparedness meeting, when it came to production, that is the bank knowing when you used your ATM card and how much money you had in your account and how much money you took out and how much money to tell you had, where you used your card, was the charge legitimate or not. All of that was solved. None of that was going to break. The 2-date system didn't matter a bit in the world. Every Y2K readiness meeting we'd have. Production, any issues? No. Okay, thank you, production. And then on to other departments. Every Y2K prep meeting. But there was still paranoia. Millennium hit that paranoia perfectly. But the problem is, if you make a TV show about a thing that is fixed to a certain historical point in time, you gotta let it go eventually. I mean, MASH lasted 10 years. The Korean War itself was like 3.5 at most. It depends on when you consider hostilities to actually end. Well, the lights went out in Milwaukee, or at least part of the part I was in at midnight Y2K. That's funny. I worship his shadow. Oh, yeah. Yeah. His divine shadow, Lex. Woo wee. That show. Man, Lex was, I don't even know. Lex was weird. But I tell you, the 90s is a really fun period to run like Delta Green. As much as Delta Green is about Call of Cthulhu, you can really do more of a Millennium themed game. And in fact, God bless John Tynes and Alan Grohe and everybody else who worked on Delta Green, because they were working on it in the early 90s. By the time it was ready to publish, the X-Files and Millennium were out. And I know a lot of folks who said, well, this is just the X-Files, but with a Call of Cthulhu wrapper on it. Like, no, Yes, Lex, the one with the twig and nuts shaped ship that destroyed planets. It was very strange. The show was very strange. So, you could do a Millennium themed horror game using Delta Green very easily. It is. You have to get them over there, though. Fire. So I posted this in the Discord last night. I am at once not proud, but on the other hand, very proud. My wife was very excited. A friend sent her the Firefly TV series on DVD. We like DVDs. I think owning physical media is a must in this day and age. There's way too much fuckery that goes on out there with physical media. But my wife gets the set and she's oohing and awing over it. There's like 4 discs and there's extras on it and everything. Now, I'm going to tell you guys honestly, and I may lose subs for saying this, but I am not a huge fan of Firefly. It was good, but I didn't think it was like the best thing ever made. I thought Babylon 5 and the original Star Trek series were better. But I appreciate the good parts of it. I appreciate that it had good parts. And, Adam Baldwin was great in it. But I just thought it was too cute by half, too clever by half in a lot of places. And of course, we now know that, Joss Whedon, of course, was an abusive piece of shit. But happy about that joke. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. He has gotten himself into a mess, and it's a mess of his own making. I could see it spiraling out of control. I mean, just woof. Yeah, I know it went black. You guys will catch up with me. I'll let you guys get caught up. You can laugh about that. Yeah, I'm looking at the actual stream. Is it Unification Day or something? Yeah. Now, a lot of people have asked me, what did you think of the movie Serenity? Again, it's okay. But really, like, if you were just going and getting into the show, I would say that it's probably not all that great. It's not all that good to start the series with. See, I don't know when I lost. I was being all clever. But I was saying the wife got the set, and I asked her, "Wow, that's really cool. Did you only get the first season, or did she send you all the seasons of Firefly?" That's what I asked. Are we at war with Eurasia? We've always been at war with Eurasia, Imperial Ramblings. It'll come back around, I promise. I mean, come on, if Arcada's streams can bounce back, mine will, right? It was mean. It was cruel. Yeah, it's Vladimir Putin. I will teach you to make American tank models and not Russian tank models. Hey, Vlad, if I wanted a Russian tank model, I would just call up a buddy over in the Ukraine and ask him to pull one out of a field for me. But anyway, he did. He screwed up. He got involved in a land war in Asia. The classic blunder. The second largest, which and is only slightly less well known, is never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line. No, my latest printing is an American tank. Tankowie Amerykański. Oh, now YouTube's going to get me. Is he speaking Russian? Cancel him. Yeah, no kidding. Actually, I said this. I said on the Twilight 2000 group, the Russian tanks that I have. Now I will create some for Twilight 2000 eventually, but the small collection, I have a BMP, I have a T80, and I have an MTLB. I have a BTR 80, which is a wheeled armor personnel carrier. So I have 3 Russian designed personnel or armored fighting vehicles. 2 are armored personnel carriers, 1 is a tank. I am going to paint those up in Ukrainian armed forces colors, complete with Ukrainian flag emblems on them. And they will not be used as targets when I do another Twilight 2000 demo for you guys. I will print up some Russian vehicles, but the first set I will dedicate to the Ukrainian folks, if that matters at all, if that can help. But never bring a stock to a knife fight. Never bring never bring a tank to a tractor fight. That's what I say. So this is a thing that happened, talking about the if I can hear you tap on the wall. I promise you I'm back. I can't believe there's still people who aren't seeing me. Goodness. So the Russians have this like semi truck trailer sized box that they stick on their on wheeled vehicles, that's just chock full of SIGINT, or signals intelligence electronic equipment. It's got jammers that can jam GPS and cell phones and listen in on cell phone, and can, if you're not if you're not careful with your crypto gear, it can listen in on supposedly encrypted conversations and all sorts of electronic warfare stuff. And on top of it, it can jam AWACS. So if you've ever seen those planes, they look like a 747, but they got a black M&M on a mast at the back end of them. That is AWACS, airborne warning systems and control something. But anyway, and this thing can jam them. The Russians have had this habit of just walking off and abandoning usable military equipment. One of their most vaunted mobile anti-aircraft platforms for medium range, called the Pantsir, which I guess is Russian for Panther. I was there during the Cat 3 days. I was there during ThickNet. I was there during coax. But I was there during the null modem days. Hands up if you ever built a null modem cable and played LAN games with it. Basically, you and one other person playing head to head at 119,000 kilobaud. But anyway, yeah, they lost 4-2 S6 Tunguska anti-aircraft. They just parked them in a field, and the soldiers wandered off, and Ukrainians found them, took pictures of them, and then dumped gasoline all over them and burned them to the ground. Token ring, Chris Kirby, you got it. Well, they just did the same thing with one of those electronic warfare trucks. They walked off and left. Guys, this is like the Germans leaving an Enigma machine and all of the code books sitting in a box on Normandy Beach. This is as big as when both the Americans separately and the British before them captured U-boats with Enigma encryption gear in them. And a lot of people like to downplay the US capture, like, oh, the British had already captured one, blah, 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 blah. The one we captured had different encryption wheels in it. It was a more advanced version. They added another sprocket. Folks, the Russians just set themselves back a decade plus in electronic warfare. We now know everything. What frequencies, how they hop them, everything that we couldn't sniff out. I guarantee you that truck is probably on its way to Poland. It'll get loaded onto a C5 that'll fly to Germany, and then to London, and then to America. And then that same C5 will fly back from America to London, to Germany, to Poland, full of more anti-tank missiles. I want to put makeup on? No. The 40-mile Russian convoy that is still sitting outside of Kyiv is apparently still there, and they've lost a couple of suburbs that they had stormed. So, yeah, I don't really want to go too far down the rabbit hole on the whole Russian thing, but it hasn't been going well for them. It's relevant because you might, if you play like a post-apocalypse game like Twilight 2000 or Aftermath or even the Morrow Project, you might want to adjust it. If you're like, you know, oh, the Soviets wiped us out, it's Red Dawn, baby. Yeah. The Russian bear can't get out of its own road. So adjust your tabletop role-playing and wargaming game expectations accordingly. Ran out of gas, too expensive. Yeah. Well, that's the thing of it is Russia since like 1996 has had nothing but naked kleptocracy, and it's showing. I mean, some reports have trickled out, make of this what you will, that there are warehouses that were supposed to be full of prepositioned war stocks that were just empty. They were just empty. Where's the MREs? Where are the spare tires? Where are the winter uniforms? Where are the medikits? Where are the spare parts? Where's the night vision gear? Where are the stretchers? It's all gone. And the generals and officers responsible for it, they have new, they have boats, they have super yachts moored off of, Greek islands. Nicolas Cage sold it all. Yep. So yeah, Russia's basically just been in a kleptocracy for the last 20 years. I mean, we spend more on our space program than they spend on their defense program. We spent more just on Afghanistan than they spent on their entire defense program for the same period of time by year. They're not a peer opponent, guys. They have the military of all of their. I mean, imagine, if you will, if Ukraine attacked NATO. Russia just steps back, nobody does anything, nobody intervenes, and Ukraine attacks NATO. That's about as effective as the Russian military is. Now, Russia has attacked Ukraine, which I just said that their two militaries are about peer. And they're getting ground into dust. So, from a wargaming standpoint, from a tabletop gaming standpoint, I hope to goodness I'm not losing everyone on this. If you're playing Twilight 2000, knock the skill levels of your opponents down, your Warsaw Pact opponents. If you're playing Morrow Project, Descendants of Russian Invaders, knock their skills down a little bit. If you're playing Aftermath, maybe the US isn't so badly screwed up, or the world in general. So if you're considering tabletop gaming those scenarios out, Team Yankee, you might want to adjust accordingly. Because remember, I have heard nothing from 1991-ish till now, when the West first started hearing about Contact 1, Contact 2, Trench Coat, all of the various Soviet and later Russian reactive armor plates, which, quick lesson, a tank can get shot with a shell that will go through it. and make things inside catch on fire and explode and kill the crew and destroy the vehicle. Some of those rounds are what are called HEAT, high explosive anti-tank, HEAT. And they use a concentrated, focused blast in one direction on the hull when it hits to blow into that. Well, back in the 70s, the Israelis said, because they'd gotten shot with a lot of anti-tank missiles, wait a minute, hold up. What if we put boxes of explosives that get triggered by those missiles and shells when they hit? But they don't blow up in every direction. They blow in the direction that the bullet is hitting them from. So the focused explosion gets pushed back. And it's called reactive armor. It catches the explosion and blows it backwards. It doesn't blow it all the way back to the person who shot it. That would be Bugs Bunny levels of stupid and hilarious. So the Russians got onto the idea. America got onto it eventually. You can see it. And they look like lunch boxes. Basically, if you see an armored vehicle and it looks like it's just festooned with lunch boxes everywhere, like they've just been stacked and they're lying on it like space shuttle tiles almost, that's what that is. Well, the Russians put it on they'll put reactive armor on a beer can if they think it's going to get shot with an anti-tank missile. And of course, they claim that their active protection systems were awesome too. An active protection system is a little gun that's mounted on your tank that has a radar that's constantly going. And when it sees an anti-tank missile coming in, it waits till it gets close and it fires a blast like a shotgun blast and shoots the missile down. That's the theory. The Israelis got really good at it too. They had a what do you call it? That's their tank. Merkava. They had a Merkava that got shot from 5 different directions with 5 different anti-tank missiles. And all 5 of them were knocked out of the sky. The tank was unharmed. And that's not in practice. The tank was like sitting on Overwatch somewhere and it got ambushed, swarm ambushed by anti-tank teams. Armor that cools my beer. I want armor that cools my beer too. Well, the Russians got on that and they're like, our reactive armor and our active protection is best in the world. Can stop tow missile, can stop javelin, can stop in-law, can stop even our own RPGs. We are in no danger. Our tanks, our older tanks are even better than they were, and our newer tanks will be even better than that. Well, whole lot of Russian tanks going up in flames. It seems that javelin is more than proof against those methods. And it also doesn't help that in some photographs, you know how I said the reactive armor boxes are filled with explosives? There have been some photographs of Ukrainians showing those boxes. There's nothing in them. It's metal, a cardboard holder for the reactive part, and nothing else. Now, they could be taking that stuff out to use for other purposes and say, oh, look how terrible the Russians are. But wouldn't you think to garner more world sympathy, they would say, oh, yeah, their stuff is nearly unstoppable. It took us 20 missiles to bring down one tank, you know. And the Russians are doing more than enough to make themselves look bad on the world stage at this point. They don't need the Ukrainians' help. But anyway, so if you are wargaming scenarios against Russian forces, whether you're playing Twilight 2000, whether you're playing Team Yankee or Aftermath or even Morrow Project, really just crank that knob way down. Crank that knob way down. Because, yeah, tactical nuclear weapons and chemical weapons are scary, but it's now becoming more and more evident that the Russian military is a joke. If their human wave tactics of just wasting lives to accomplish a goal isn't even working this time. But that, you know what? That's all I want to say about it. That's all I want to say about that topic. From a gaming standpoint, adjust your games accordingly. I'm just going to leave it at that. And Michael, you're probably right. Let's talk about something more pleasant. Let's talk about events that are coming up. So I've told you guys we have the anniversary show is coming not this Saturday, but the Saturday after. Speaking of war games, Ty Beard is going to be here. Tracy Lush will be here. We'll have some friends of the show who are famous to me and dear to my heart. You might not know them, but I hope you enjoy their company while they're here on the show. They will be here, and we're gonna. I'm reaching. Everybody's tied up at GaryCon, like starting today until probably like Monday afternoon. People are going to be tied up at GaryCon, so I'm not expecting to hear back from anybody until next week, but hopefully we'll have some more. June 11th, I will be at Gods and Monsters all day long for their 7th year anniversary. Now, if you're in the Orlando area and you want to go to a comic and game store that has a bar and they sell all kinds of science fiction stuff, you want the Blade Runner issue of Starlog, a full story arc run of Doctor Strange in the original comics, a couple of Star Wars pins, a few D&D minis, some paints, maybe that Alita Battle Angel manga you've been thinking of picking up because the movie was so cool. And then get a cold drink, a little wobble pop, go to Gods and Monsters. They're 5421 International Drive, Orlando, Florida. Tell Ton and Anna Bill Sylvie said hello. But Gods and Monsters is where it's at. And this is like the most exciting thing in order that I've got coming up because I haven't done a games day at their store in so long, and I'm so excited about doing it. So I'm going to go down there and I will be running some OD&D, some AD&D, probably just some AD&D. I'll probably just run like 3, maybe 4 games. So 12 hours, 3 games, 4 hours a game. We'll see. But I'll be down there. That's on the 11th, and I'm looking forward to it. Hello, Vampire. Can I hold you in my hand there? So I'll be down at Gods and Monsters on the 11th. August 20th. Now, I would dare say we're going to be at 1,000 folks by June. Is that next to the all-you-can-eat lobster place? Oh. I know there's one on one leg of International Drive. IR. I don't know exactly where it's at, but I think there's a lobster buffet down there. I know there's a couple of Brazilian steakhouses. So I don't know what the eats situation is like there, like down there. But anyway, I know the Vault 5421, the premier geek pub in Orlando, and it is the best bar/comic shop in all of Orlando. That's a scientific fact. But I would dare say between now and the 11th, we're going to get the convention. We are going to get the convention. Do they have unbreaded? Unbreaded. So that's coming up. Then on the 20th of August, I will actually be doing a I will be. Oh no, it's not GCX. Bill, get with the program. I will be at QuestCon. I'll be at QuestCon in Orlando. Chip Schultz, you are unbreaded. I give you that, my friend. You are unbreaded. I'm going to let Michael Connor explain breaded versus unbreaded. But it's my understanding, basically, that a professor released, how shall I say this charitably, a rambling manifesto. It's like 100 pages long, and Matthew Harris, yes, he put his manifesto on the UCLA website, and it is a manifesto. It is one Ford Econoline van short of being a crazy guy at the park with a megaphone type of manifesto. And he refers at many of the things that he dislikes. He says they're breaded. I don't understand it either, but good and righteous things are unbreaded. So, but Nick Arcadon over on his stream read huge chunks of it, and unbreaded kept coming up, and it kind of became a meme with Michael Connor, who said it every time he comes into the stream, and I've just kind of picked it up. Well, Vinny, it's less awesome and more like Mein Kampf. It's that level of nasty in places, but a lot more schizophrenic, a lot more schizo. I mean, it is clearly someone with mental issues, like more than good old Corporal Schicklesgerber had. 803 pages. The Lord of the Rings, just not counting the indices, is an 803 pages long, I don't think. Breaded. I'm Dungeon Minister, you can be breaded. That's fine. So that's the breaded, unbreaded thing. But anyway, August, I will be at QuestCon in Orlando. I will be giving a talk with Q&A. So if you're going to be in the Orlando area and you want to check that out, I don't know if they're going to stream it. That would be funny. You guys would be like, I listen to the schmuck run his mouth like 3 hours a night, 5 nights a week. I'm not wasting a Saturday on this guy. Battle of Pelennor Fields project. Greeting to you. Did you know you have a whole Led Zeppelin song dedicated to your user handle? Isn't that awesome? He reads one random page each night. But anyway, yes, I will be at QuestCon giving a talk, and then I will be hanging out with Tracy Lesh at his art table. He graciously invited me to hang out at his art table. So that's basically, we got the guac coming. The guac will be delivered to the table. Now, look, you guys are free to make up con merch for yourselves all you want. But I will be sorely disappointed if somebody does not manage to make something, create something, commission something that combines guacamole and tabletop role-playing games in some way. I will be sorely disappointed if that doesn't work out. So yeah, we've got the guac. I've got Gods and Monsters. I've got the anniversary show. I've got QuestCon. We will have lots of guests tomorrow, of course. RPG Elite will be representing as we have Servant of Shiloh in the house. That's going to be a lot of fun. Guac is always unbreaded. That's right. Chips in a bowl of dice logo. I like it. I like it. The Dungeon Minister already has the shirt idea. Army of the Dead in guac colors. I like that. I like that. Oh, what about a callback to the late great Jim Rosloff's D&D comic strips where green slime is dripping down on the party, but it's guacamole. Guacamole, look out! It's making my sword delicious. Goblins are guac color, yeah. Well, Michael Connor, you just haven't had good guacamole. And it's a condiment. It is a condiment. You have it on things. You have it on burritos and tacos and hamburgers. Yes, you have it on hamburgers. Guacamole on a hamburger is delicious. I love guacamole on a hamburger. $40K Marine Army based on the Muppets. Michael, you need a 3D printer for that. 3D printer. Oh my gosh. Somebody asked me earlier. I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to find this. This is way up here. I was talking about printing. So many comments tonight. Was it Luther Calhoun? Luther, if it was you, let me see. I got to see. Someone asked me way early on. Was it Joshua Garlock? One of you fine folks, one of you good people asked me what kind of printers I have. Okay, so I have a Mars. I have an Elegoo, which is honestly for a resin printer is probably the most appropriate name ever. I have an Elegoo Mars 2 Pro. The Pro allegedly has a carbon filter system for air purification and a couple of other nice touches. That is my printer out yonder. Now my FDM printer is actually from a company called Anycubic. It is the Anycubic Mega 02. I don't know if it's a pro model or not, but there's a printer I'm looking at which is not terribly expensive, but I have other concerns. Maybe hopefully by next year, larger build printers will be available at cheaper prices and I can ask Santa Claus for one. Because there's some big stuff that I'd like to print up. I mean, this one, it'll print like 250 millimeters by 250 millimeters by 300 millimeters. So that's like 9 inches by 9 inches by 300 millimeters, 30 cents, 9 inches by 9 inches by a foot. So that's a pretty big build volume. Chip Schultz, thank you. Yes. I do have a curing station. I have a little curing station because I have a small printer. I have a small resin printer. So here's the thing. This is called a callback in entertainment. Pay attention. Don't go to another channel. This is important. Resin prints of resin. Resin prints start out as liquid. This is juice. This is plastic juice. And when it gets flashed with ultraviolet light, it causes it to harden. And what happens is you have a build plate that you start out with, and the computer dips it into a little vat of liquid resin. And when it gets all the way to the bottom of the vat, it hovers a micron above the bottom of the vat, and the bottom is clear, and it sits on an LCD screen. Under that LCD screen is a UV lamp, and it flashes like a flash bulb. And it puts down the first layer that sticks to the build plate. And it goes up a little bit, and it flashes the next layer of the image, and that sticks to the first layer, and so on and so on and so on and so on until it's done. And you then pop it off the build plate and wash it off with water or with alcohol if you're using alcohol rinsed resin, which I don't recommend. And then you take you take the piece when it's done. Now, the outside is basically, it's very faintly tacky. And you can just leave it out to air dry, but it will always have a little bit of tackiness. And like if you get into it with your fingernail, you'll leave a dent. It'll be like a soft, like a very soft plastic or a very hard bubble gum consistency. Like think hubba bubba bubble gum. Yeah. You can say old school or online, whichever. So what you do is you put this inside a little box, and the box is lined on the inside with ultraviolet lights, usually just a strip of LED lights. And it's got a timer, and it'll switch on, and some of them have a turntable built in. Some of them just have lights all the way around the inside, but you have a timer, and it'll run for just a few minutes. And it hardens the outer surface. It gives the outer surface a final hardening and makes it into solid plastic. And that is how UV cured resin works. It means that you can't print outside. If you're going to be like in an outdoors place, you have to be under a porch awning, and the sun's not going to come in on you. You're not going to get reflections on you or anything like that, because the printer does have a hood to prevent foreign objects from coming in, and you could conceivably, have a completely opaque hood, but you want to be able to kind of glance in there and see what's going on. It's a floor wax. It's a dessert topping. Jack says, it occurs to me that if the printer had a slow resin drip, the bath wouldn't have to be as deep with liquid, making things cleaner. Now, I'll tell you something, Jack. There are some 3D printers that will inject by layer exactly as much as the object needs and then draw it back out. So if it's printing this, there's only enough on there for the layer. And when it's done, it pumps the tank clean. So there's only ever enough in there for this one project and its layers, and then it pumps the tank clean itself and automatically puts it back in the bottle. Those are very, very, very expensive units. Now, my garage, this outer area out here behind this door, is dark. It is closed up. The printer has its lid on it. The lights aren't on out there. So I can basically leave the resin in the vat for at least a few days and just print off what's in there. I initially thought, like, you did a print, then you took the vat off, then you dumped your remaining resin out and you cleaned the vat and you went all through that. 2 days going now. Well, 3 days, really. Yeah, 3 days, and I've gone out there and just put the thumb drive with the models that I want to print in it and said, "Go." I have printed in 3D, burn him. Well, I mean, I have committed a minor sin. This is technically theft. This beholder, this is the Grenadier beholder from the Grenadier monsters line from here. Let me show you guys who may have missed it initially. I apologize in advance for all the horrible shakiness, because this isn't going to show up well at all. But let me see. Come on. Move out of the way. Maybe that'll help. So this guy, if he looks familiar, yeah, it's not coming in that well. It's just trying to pick up too much stuff in the back. I'm gonna have to build a little something for showing off things like that. But anyway, yeah, that's somebody scanned. Somebody did a photogrammetry and did a scan of the Grenadier miniature. So technically that's theft. But you know what? I can't go to a store and buy it. Not even Merleton in Italy that bought up a bunch of Grenadier stuff, because this is intellectual property that belongs to Wizards of the Coast. Thank you, Corian. Are there any fumes in your garage from it? Yes. And I don't see it, but I do wear somewhere over here on my table. I can see it. I'm not gonna go jumping up and grabbing it, but I do have a respirator that I wear when I'm out there. I was made to understand that the Pro model, with its filters and its gasket on its hood, which is next to useless, was like the bomb. Like, oh yeah, you'll have a you'll have the air is pulled out of the thing and it's filtered through carbon charcoal activated charcoal filters, and it's awesome. It's not. The first time I tried it here in my office, I was certain that I was going to drive everybody out of the house, but they were like, yeah, we kind of faintly smelled something. The second time I did the prints, it, like, my daughter texted me from her bedroom, I'm closing the door. The cat and I are in, my cat and I are in our bedroom. The fumes are just too strong, but I've opened up the windows and the front door in the living room just so mom doesn't have to smell it when she gets home. So it's like the first time, nobody hardly could smell it. The second time, it was awful and overwhelming. So I just put it out in the garage. So the question is my garage full of resin fumes? Yes. This door has a gasket around it. It has weather stripping. The outer garage door, even though it locks, the little seal at the bottom of the door has vulcanized and cracked and broken in several places, so it gets some ventilation. And when I'm going to go out there and print, I raise it up a couple of inches anyway, so I do have some air circulation, so I won't be overwhelmed by fumes, because even with the little mask, the little paper respirator on, I can still smell fumes. But I've gotten a lot less paranoid about it. Like the first time I did it, I had like an old shirt as a smock. Now I still wear rubber gloves. They say, oh, wow, if you get that resin on your hands, it's going to leave burn marks. My skin's just not that sensitive. I've gotten resin on my hands and it doesn't do anything to them. Adam Black says, I wander off for a month or two to get my life in order and come back to 986 subs. Hello, Adam. Welcome back. I hope you got your life in order, brother. It's good to see you. We have 986 guys. We got 986 subs. Thank you for bringing the good news. It's not only good news, it's good to see you again, Adam Black. Welcome. So anyway, I'm not selling it. But so the garage does smell like resin. If I go out there right now and take a big lungful, I'll be like, because it doesn't smell pleasant. Now, I was certain that when I got my filament printer last year, that like the whole house was going to smell like melting plastic. Everybody was like, "Oh, you got to get a hood, you got to get a fume hood, you got to have fans to pull that out. So you don't want that burning plastic smell. That'll kill you. It's lung cancer in a box." And I'm like, really? Because the stuff is basically made from milk proteins. I mean, it's plastic, but it's like molecularly, it's hard. PLA, polylactic acid, is what it is. But it's ABS plastic that produces more fumes, and that's only because it runs hotter. So that one doesn't. I mean, if there's any odor to that at all, you have to lean down. You have to practically put your nose on the print while it's going, and I don't recommend it because the hot end of the printer, the thing that draws it, runs at about 200 degrees centigrade or about 400 degrees. So it'd be about like sticking your nose inside your oven. You'll get your snoot burned. But if you can smell anything, it's a faint baking smell. Like think like you're making cookies or breaded printing. So it's the bishop. Y'all know the skit I'm talking about. The ring, Vic. Don't touch the ring. We was too late. He's torn down Choir Invisible or whatever it was. Yeah, wear a surgical mask. They stop everything. I should be able to. From what I've heard since like the beginning of 2020, a surgical mask should protect me from AIDS, herpes, hard radiation, the vacuum of space, antimatter, wrongful opinions, armor piercing anti-tank grenades. And I think that just about covers it. Yeah, that's what they should cover. The Bishop skit on Monty Python is hands down one of the funniest bits they ever did. First of all, it's recursive. It literally loops back around on itself, like so many Python skits do. But second of all, Michael Palin as the gangster / spy bishop with like the vicars. Peter Gunn is playing and he's walking down the street in the black Italian suit with the Ray-Ban sunglasses and the mitre and the staff, just shoving people off the sidewalk. But that's that is one of my everybody thought, oh, Monty Python dungeon, it's Dungeons and Dragons. Clearly you mean the Holy Grail. There was a lot of good stuff in Python that was great, and the Bishop sketch is among them. Are we just not going to break 20 viewers tonight? Is that just how that's going to be? I've been sitting watching. It's gotten down as low as 9 and has gone up as many as 18. Come on. Somebody spin up a virtual machine. I need that dopamine rush. Give me 20 viewers. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding. Yes, the staff phone with the light at the top. The text, Vic. Don't read the text. Good times. Python was good stuff. I would say that Monty Python, seeing Monty Python for the first time on PBS on an antenna TV on Saturday night, 2 episodes of Monty Python's Flying Circus at 11 and 11:30 on a Saturday night. And then they would Jack Horkheimer, if you've lived in Florida, you know who Jack Horkheimer is. He was the Star Hustler. And he would tell you all about that night's sightings, about upcoming meteor showers, and that sort of thing. Jack Horkheimer was a treasure. And then they would close out the viewing day. And that was where I discovered Monty Python, and it was the funniest stuff I had. It just like opened up, as I had seen Benny Hill, and I always thought Benny Hill was like, it was okay, right? I mean, okay, Benny Hill. Oh, Horkheimer was on Dallas PBS. That's awesome, Chris. That's awesome. Is he was out of the Miami an observatory in Miami, Florida. And I remember reading a write-up on him in Florida Magazine, which was kind of like Parade. It came with a Sunday paper. Remember a Sunday paper? Paper about that thick. If you left it in the car when you went into church, when you came out, the entire car smelled like hot newsprint, just kind of made you nauseous. The old man wouldn't let you crack a window. I paid for air conditioning in this car. We're using the air conditioning in this car. Unless you were like us and you didn't own cars with air conditioning. Then you had 240 AC anyway. But I remember reading a write-up and all about, like, he had like crippling asthma when he was a kid. Benny wasn't my cup of tea. I appreciated the skill, and the writing quality of some of the skits was pretty good. I'll give it that. But Python, I always thought was a cut above. Now, we had a friend of the family. Well, he was a friend of my uncle's. And before geeks were a thing, because my uncle, okay, anybody out there who has ever seen King of the Hill, in the best possible ways, my dad was Hank Hill like. I mean, think of the times when Hank really shone as a father, not funny ways, but times with actual pathos. And that was a lot like my dad. My Uncle MJ was like Buck Strickland in the worst possible ways. And my dad's dad was very much like Hank's dad. He was an awful, awful, awful person. But anyway, my uncle subscribed to what we would now call a classic geek fallacy of, if I'm friends with this person and I'm friends with this person, those two people should be friends. Well, that was not the case. This individual, Mike Sharp, was not, my dad did not care for Mike. But my uncle would invite Mike and Mike's family to events, to Christmas parties at our house, to all sorts of get-togethers. Oh, there are the Sharps. And I remember, I guess Mike Sharp must have been in his 30s or so, but I will say this, their house was the first place I ever played Atari 2600. They had an Atari 2600. But I had just seen my first few episodes of Monty Python. And I had seen some Benny Hill, and I decided that Monty Python was better than Benny Hill. And I was 10 or 12 years old. And I said so. And he said, unironically, Benny Hill is the epitome of comedy. Monty Python is unwatchable trash. It is the dumbest garbage ever put on TV. He wasn't kidding. He honestly thought that. I did not see that, Michael. That is a very unbreaded thing for John Cleese to say. Or maybe that's a very breaded thing given the context. But Monty Python, I think D&D nerds get Monty Python. All kinds of nerds get Monty Python. I liked Eric. Was it Eric Idle? I think it was Eric Idle who there was a debate after Life of Brian came out, and I get it. I mean, you know, I call myself Christian. Life of Brian has some very troubling bits in it. But someone made the comment that one of the panelists from the Church of England said that Life of Brian was blasphemous. And Eric Idle corrected him and he said, it's not blasphemous, it's heretical. And he was serious. He wasn't making a joke. He wasn't like making a ha ha, I'm going to make you laugh thing. He was making a point. It's not blasphemous, it's heretical. So it's like the Beatles versus Stones. Of course, the Beatles are better, just like Python. I'm not gonna. It's like Led Zeppelin versus everybody else. Led Zeppelin is the best. But no, you know, I mean, taste in comedy is it's going to vary. It's like taste in role playing games, right? But I really think that Python, oh, Jack knows what I'm talking about. That was the Bishop of the Church of England, Cleese. Life of Brian is just funny. I guess a dungeon minister thinks it's okay. I mean, Life of Brian speaks to so many different things. I mean, I showed my daughter the Latin lesson because she was actually struggling with languages, and her unit at that time, my older daughter, when she was in high school, but I showed her the bit where Brian paints Romans Go Home on a wall and gets caught by John Cleese. And at sword point, he gives him a Latin lesson and makes him do it properly, and then has him write it, was it 100 times or 1,000 times before dawn? You know, don't do it again. And they walk off, and he's just covered the entire square in Jerusalem with Roman Go Home. But I mean, for me, Life of Brian is not saying this is what Christ was like and this is what Christians are like. It's this is what uncontrolled zealots behave like. And this is the lunacy of polity based around faith. That's according. The people called Romans, they go to the house. President indicative. Shink. puts, he puts the gladius right there on his throat. But you must use the. Yes, sir. Hail Caesar, sir. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right, Jack. Jack. Oh, I'm not touching that, Michael. I'm not touching that. I will say this. I will say this. Life of Brian gave one of the most touching and heartbreaking events in war a voice. So a few years after Life of Brian had been released, of course, to save his country's failing dictatorship and his own skin, Generalissimo Garibaldi Galtieri said, "Hey, we're going to invade the Malvinas." And the British are like, "It's the Falklands, and no, you're not." And they did. And so the British went down there and they got their noses bloodied. The Argentinians were ready for them. I mean, and I kind of get it. It's an ocean war. I mean, it's not like us in Desert Storm or us in hitting Afghanistan. You know, they basically had to fight from the ocean against a but a nation's coast, and they had peer equipment. You know, they had Mirage fighters, they had Exocet anti-ship missiles. No one knew what a modern anti-ship missile would do. The Germans and the Americans and the Japanese had all used anti-ship missiles. The Japanese were human piloted, both fighter planes and Oka rocket bomb planes. But the Argentinians really took it to the British at sea, and it was a damn near thing. There was a cargo ship, the Atlantic Conveyor, MV Atlantic Conveyor. MV standing for merchant vehicle. It's not like SS for sailing ship or USS United States ship or HMS Her Majesty's ship. MV Atlantic Conveyor. It was a big ship. And one night, an Argentinian attack group slipped through the picket and fired an Exocet missile and struck Atlantic Conveyor. No, I'm sorry. The Sheffield Atlantic Conveyor was sunk, but the Sheffield was an actual warship. HMS Sheffield was hit. It was really quite a horrible event. I won't go into the details here. But the Sheffield was hit, proceeded to burn, the crew abandoned, and waited for hours in freezing cold water. I mean, hey, it's the South Atlantic. It should be warm, right? Yeah, no, it's like a few hours flight north of the South Pole when you're that far south. And of course, to await rescue, the crew in their life rafts, their lifeboats, some, God bless them, in survival suits floating in the water, all began to sing, "Always look on the bright side of life." I mean, can you imagine? You've got critically wounded people with you. You don't know if they're going to live 5 more minutes. Your ship is 100 yards away, on fire, magazines exploding, fuel burning. The hull, which is in superstructure, which is aluminum, is burning too. And you're hoping you don't get pushed into a puddle of burning oil in your little inflatable lifeboat, or worse yet, pushed up against the superstructure of the ship, which by that point, by all accounts, was starting to glow white hot. And just almost on cue, everybody starts to sing, "Always look on the bright side of life." I mean, if you live to be 100 years old, can you imagine that? I don't know. So anyway, so I've been kind of running my gums for a little while now. So let me I'm going to give my voice box a break because tomorrow again we're going to have Servant of Shiloh on. Friday we're going to be playing some Gamma World again. That will be a lot of fun. I know some of you guys out there are actually in the Gamma World game. Some of you guys out there are in the Gamma World game. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But I want to take a minute. Oh, now that's a good Lady Hawk. That scene when he's got his head and his forearm out of a hole this big, and he says, reminds me of escaping mother's womb. God, what a memory. But I want to take a minute before we wrap up because it's getting late. And there's 16 of you here. I feel like terrible. I feel like I'm like a band. Like if it had just tapered down, it's like, oh, okay, well, only like there's just a couple of us left. Let's wrap. But clearly people want to hear what I have to say, but I'm just kind of talking in circles at this point. But I want to take a minute and I want to give a shout out to the people who are part of our Patreon. And if you are interested in joining the Patreon, before I put that on screen, patreon.com/the Delver's Dungeon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the channel. And these folks have decided to do so. Digital Discord, Joshua Garlock, Lord Corion, Ricky Maru, Mobius, Kevin Reynolds, Doomsword Deathmaster, Mark Simpson, Damien247, James F. Keck, William Smith, The Dungeon Minister, Manny Wall, Mark Corey, Kevin Wood, and Todd Sharp. I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate your support. And part of what I'm going to be so busy on this weekend is giving back to you like I should have given back to you by now. You're all just looking at Vampirella. This is a free Vampirella comic that I got. It's free comic book day is what it says up there. And like, I never really considered it that much. But I used to see like the big, like the Vampirella comics were oversized. They were always like the big magazine sized ones. And it's so weird because when I was growing up, something like Epic Illustrated Monthly or Heavy Metal would have never been at reach of children. And old Vampy was just right out there next to the spinny rack with all the Marvels and whatnot. But Vampy there, yeah, she was right in reach, as it were. But yeah, I'll talk about Vampirella some other time. Lady Death is hotter. Horses for courses. I think it depends on the artist. Like Playboy, you get Vampirella for the pictures. Yeah. Don't get Vampirella for the story. But anyway, because Vampirella's original story is actually kind of weird. It's like, oh, she's a female vampire and she seduces men because she dresses in 2 strips of cloth. She wears stuff more revealing than what's his name was in the Borat movie. But yeah, no, it's kind of strange. But anyway, I am going to let you guys go. It has been a fun evening of chat with y'all. Tomorrow night, we will be here with Servant of Shiloh. Friday night, we will be playing some Gamma World. You guys have an absolutely wonderful evening. Thank you. Bless you all. And look, I was just kidding. Like, oh, I have to get 20 viewers. Guys, I would do this if there was one person out there. If one of you said, please keep streaming. I know nobody else is going to watch, but I want to see you live stream. I would do it because I care about y'all that much. So have a wonderful evening, everyone. And I will, you know what? I'm going to close because OBS screwed up. I'm going to close with the with the opening credits.